It's maybe become a bit of a joke that I talk about liminality a lot on my podcast. And fully leaning into that today, I want to read you the introduction to Boundaries and Thresholds, papers from the Katharine Briggs Club, edited by Hilda Davidson. This introduction is by Davidson and has a lot of parallels with the work that I've done on the show. Introduction to Boundaries and Thresholds, papers from the Katharine Briggs Club by Hilda Davidson. One more river, and that's the River of Jordan. One more river, there's one more river to cross. The concept of boundaries to be crossed and thresholds to be passed in the life of the individual and the community was first developed by Arnold van Gennep in 1908, Le Rites de Passage. He showed how the path from birth to death was divided by a series of boundaries, and how their importance was instinctively recognised by the community. The birth of a child, entry into adult life, betrothal, marriage, parenthood, retirement, and finally death are all likely to be marked by rites and ceremonies. Similarly, entry into a special vocation or attainment of a new social status, as when someone becomes a monk, a knight, or a king, is felt to demand ceremony. There may also be rites marking initiation into a limited group, ranging from a children's gang or craft apprenticeship to admittance into a secret society such as the Freemasons. Once one begins to list the rituals associated with occasions like these, the significance of the crossing of boundaries in our lives becomes apparent. There are also the recognised boundaries of the changing seasons, marking the recurrent pattern of the solar or lunar year for the community as a whole. Thus, the 1st of May, ushering in the summer, or the opening of the new year, may be marked with ceremony. Van Gennep noted too the boundaries between peace and war, plague and health, and that all-important one between sacred and profane. This may be recognised in many ways, perhaps by ceremonies at the crossing of a threshold into an area of sacred space, or by visions of ascent to the heavens or descent under the earth in order to enter a realm outside of time. Visible geographical boundaries, the frontier between states, for instance, or the point where cultivated land gives way to the wild and untamed, possess a significance far beyond their practical utility. The passions that rage over the safeguarding of boundaries, even of small fields or gardens, are reflected in numerous court cases and perennial battles over rights of way, and so it has been from the remote past. Wayland Hand gives an example from North America of a way of dealing with the dispute over fencing. One claimant would put up a second boundary fence so that farm wagons could pass along the strip of disputed territory, and this was known as the Devil's Lane. A similar name, the Devil's Gap, was used for the roadway between the church at Clare in Suffolk and the Six Bells Inn opposite the church tower, in this case a gap between sacred and profane. The area of no man's land between armies or the lines of trenches are grimmer examples of this type of boundary, which Tolstoy describes in War and Peace as a terrible line of uncertainty and fear, like a line dividing the living from the dead. It was pointed out by Van Gennep that crossing boundaries can involve preliminal rites of separation, followed by transitional rites, and then ending with post-liminal rites of incorporation into the new world. In some elaborate initiation ceremonies, candidates may be required to suffer pain and humiliation, perhaps even torture in ordeals imposed upon them, while the period leading to their final acceptance in a new role may be prolonged over years. There may be a journey in the wilderness for those preparing to cross a crucial boundary in life. A symbolic journey may take place, such as a pilgrimage or a funeral procession from home to the place of graves, while a departure over the sea is a favourite symbol of a boundary crossing. See my last episode, Mysterious Isle, where we talk about the ancient kings' bodies being brought from mainland Scotland across the sea to the final resting place of Iona. Calendar boundaries give the opportunity to seek for omens and signs to indicate whether the next period of time will be blessed with good fortune, and these are marked not only by feasting and exchange of hospitality, but sometimes by violence and mayhem, the permitted overturning of customary order during the time of transition, creating a period of confusion before normal living is restored. Participants may put on disguises, appearing as fantastic beings, strangers from another world, or as birds and animals. One function of a boundary is to keep out enemies and protect those inside from danger, illustrated by a recorded Slav custom at a time of pestilence, when naked women dragged a plough around their village at night, cutting a deep furrow to enclose it. Other rites have their purpose in maintaining boundaries. The beating of the bounds still continues in some parishes. It was practiced in the Christian church from at least the 6th century and used as a means of blessing the fields. After the Reformation, Anglican clergy were encouraged to continue it, with pauses at fixed points along the route for the minister to pray or preach. George Herbert, in 1652, the country parson, commends the custom which, quote, preserved justice in the preservation of boundaries. But the boys taking part must have viewed the practice with mixed feelings, since they were likely to be beaten, thrown into streams, dragged through hedges, or made to climb over roofs in order to impress the boundary on their young minds. A less painful way to assist the memory, examples of which survive from the 13th century in Norway, was to recite doggerel verses cataloguing points along the boundary. Sometimes the crossing of a boundary is irreversible and there is no turning back. On other occasions, the traveller returns, but the price may be heavy. The importance of the transitional stage before the crossing is completed is now widely recognised, largely through the work of Victor Turner, who further developed the ideas of Van Gennep. The term liminality, Latin limen, boundary, signifying a position on the threshold of new territory, is now in general use. People undergoing initiation rites may be viewed as beings outside the community and therefore sacred, freed from normal taboos and inhibitions. They may steal with impunity, for instance, and even be compelled to get their food in this way. The major calendar boundaries were times for communication with the other world, and in many tales of contacts with the fairy people or meetings with the dead, these take place at Halloween or at Christmas. Similarly, the area on or between borders could be a place of inspiration or enchantment. In Little Gidding, T.S. Eliot calls the frontier between worlds, quote, the intersection of the timeless moment. An Irish seer might seek inspiration at the edge of the sea where land and water met, and other such places, the entrance to a temple, a cave, a well, or a path into the forest, were places of potency and danger. The German folklorist Klein declared the crossroads to be the most magical spot in popular tradition, and the point where paths met or two or more streams came together has since early times been credited with powers of protection and healing, favoured spots of magic spells and love auguries. Crossroads were also dangerous. Ghosts were seen there, witches and demons met, and there suicides were buried while the gallows stood nearby. Victor Turner claims that jesters, clowns, shamans and poets belong to this border realm, while it is temporarily inhabited by initiates and outlaws. He refers also to liminal periods of history when the past has lost its grip and the future has not yet put on a definite shape. It feels a bit like now is a time like that. Concepts like these help to explain not only the long life of certain strange rites and customs, but also much religious and mythological symbolism and memorable images found in folk and fairy tales and in great works of art. We remember from childhood the hero riding through the ring of fire, breaking through the thorn hedge to reach the enchanted princess, or climbing the tree which takes him to a realm where giants can be slain and treasure won. Memorable also is the river forded by Christian and Mr. Valiant for Truth in Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress on the last stage of the journey to the celestial city, each struggling through deep water when his time came until, quote, all the trumpets sounded for him on the other side. There are tales of contacts across such barriers. The friendly albatross emerging from the realms of mist and snow in Coleridge's Ancient Mariner is one, and we may find the world topsy-turvy as in Ben Jonson's Bartholomew Fair and Shakespeare's As You Like It and A Midsummer Night's Dream, where the mentors and guides in the forest are clowns and jesters and mischievous supernatural beings. If you find this topic interesting, I would, yes, like to recommend the book Boundaries and Thresholds, Papers from the Katharine Briggs Club, edited by Hilda Davidson, as I said. But also another episode of mine, Series 2, Episode 5, Places Between Places, where I explore this concept of liminality in more detail. I'd also like to recommend a bonus episode of mine which I've just uploaded called Are the Fairies the Dead?, which was the inspiration for reading this to you because during my research for this bonus episode I reread the work of Katharine Briggs, who I'm a big fan of, and yes, this led me to this book. In this bonus episode, clues kind of in the title, but I look at the interesting connection between the fairy world and human mortality. I've looked at this a little bit before, but here is a beautiful episode for you to sink into. Talk to you very soon.